Good day and welcome to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. This is the program where we come face to face with issues plaguing our society. Today our guest is psychologist Dr. Leahcim Semaj. We're going to be discussing the spate of recent domestic violence across Jamaica. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Semaj.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you for being here. Let's get right into it. What is domestic violence?
Well, violence is a broad construct. No?
Yes.
It's a process by which you negatively impact another human being. I just use a generic term. So it can be physical.
Yes.
Violence can be verbal. Violence can be emotional. And I think it's important for us to use the entire spectrum of violence. Because what really comes to light is when it gets physical. And the ultimate act of violence ends up taking somebody's life. You know, so that's why it is so dramatic. But then we really need to look at all the other levels. Because to a large extent, physical violence is associated with men. But verbal violence and emotional violence is associated with women.
With women.
And the two things work together. The two things work together.
You said that they work together. How do they work together?
Well, oftentimes in a domestic situation, there are conflicts.
Yes.
There are arguments. Now, there are also fights. But more often than not, the women win the argument because of her verbal capability, whereas the man wins the fight because the man uses muscle and weapons and tools. Now, developmentally, by age about 5, girls learn something called malice. Me go malice her. Me gonna talk to Kimberly no more.
As early as age 5?
As early as age 5.
Wow.
That's not a boy behavior.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the girls literally just gang up and just stop talk to one another or stop talk to somebody and so on. And they learn it very well. So I think once we start talking about, I'd rather talk about the violence in a generic sense. So we're covering all the base because we really need to pull back. Even the music. Yeah? Music is a form of verbal auditory violence. When the song sing about what you're going to do and what you're going to do, we're going to do the woman. And that's part of violence.
But many argue that no, it's just lyrics to a song.
Well, listen, why is it then that the cultural artists will tell you that I'm trying to teach people something? But whereas the artists who are promoting violence and indiscriminate sex don't admit that I'm teaching somebody something. All artists are teachers. An interesting thing, you know, the Bible says it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth.
Yes.
And I also remind people that whatever you metabolize transforms you. Now you can metabolize food, you eat food, it transforms you. You listen to a particular kind of music, it predisposes you to behave in a particular way. I was a guest at Beanie Man's wedding to the angel. Huh?
Okay.
Cartel is also a guest there too, and for most of the night, none of the songs associated with both of those artists in the negative. The bulk of the songs played were love songs.
Positive.
And R&B. So that, look, you want to get to a particular mood, you put on a certain kind of music, right? So to say that music don't impact behavior, yeah, you want a certain mood, you put on a certain. So that it's verbal, auditory, you know, sometimes it's even more powerful. Because once you put something to music, you can get somebody to start responding to it in a way that, I've heard Tony Rebel say that you have some songs that are so awful, but in a couple of weeks you find yourself just singing along with it. Because you hear it so often.
Yes.
My daughter teaches at the University of the West Indies, and she did an analysis of Shaka Demus and Pliers, Murder She Wrote.
Okay.
And one thing she pointed out as a person who was in literature, that here is a song that you dance into it, but that song is about reproductive rights and who is in charge of the woman's body and what qualifies that man to tell her what she should and should not do.
Yes.
So you see what I'm saying? Put in music and you get away with all kind of things, but saying that to a woman that she does that and she shouldn't. So that's the broad construct I look at these things. That it's not just the physical. The physical, it has a finality to it, especially if a life was lost.
Yes.
But there's the emotional and there's the verbal. It's all part of the same spectrum.
So it's just one line that leads to another.
Inevitably.
And physical is the ultimate.
Is the ultimate.
Wow.
Is the ultimate.
So, with the recent happenings of domestic violence, we've seen in the last less than a week, we've seen one murder suicide, 3 murders, 3 domestic murders. Why? Why is this happening?
The frequency, it could just be circumstantial, right?
Okay.
The fact that we now have social media and media feeds on each other so that we hear about these things and we hear about the gory details and voice notes and video clips and all of these things are present, so it is more in our face. It gives a lot more urgency. But these things have been happening, so that if it happened twice within a week or 3, it really gives you a lot more attention. And death, again, especially we're talking about people in the prime of their life, and we don't associate love with death, because you have marriage and you have funeral.
Yes.
It's different
Two
ends
different
of a spectrum,
spectrums.
you know. But when love hurts, it's something that we can all relate to, because love is what we all aspire for, aspire to. And then when what's supposed to be a situation turns into, it gets our attention. But my biggest concern is that we're focused on it purely in almost the gory details of the end product, and not the analytical piece now that's saying, no, okay, what leads up to this? We can't try the case with the individuals because we don't know their story. But we can take the big picture and we said, no, okay, what possesses a man who, remember at some point, both of them were lovers.
Yes.
Both of them said how much they loved each other and so on. But it comes to the point now that gets them, the man, to kill the woman. And then the other thing, to kill the woman and then kill himself. But for me, my big concern is one, we have to find a way to teach men especially how to end a relationship without ending somebody's life. And I want to spend some time talking about that
yes.
We have to start teaching men how to do that. And we also have to teach women how to spot the signs early. Yes, 3 women are dead since the beginning of this year, but I would estimate that there are thousands of women out there. If we consider the death stage 10, I think there are probably thousands of women at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So our job is how can we empower those women to extricate themselves if they can't change the situation? How can we empower those men to pull back? Because we're dealing with some big forces here.
Yes.
Human society evolved as hunters and gatherers or nomads. In both of those formats, men had power over women. The earliest forms of society, children and women were the property of men.
Yes.
All right? Now, that's for thousands of years. Men are bigger than women.
Physically?
Historically, women were dependent on men for protection, for food, for everything. But we have got, Max Weber offered a brilliant analysis of society. Now, once you get to the state as a monopoly on violence, we can't hit each other anymore. We can't be violent. Men can't be violent to women anymore. The only violence allowed in a state is state-sanctioned violence. So a policeman, if you are resisting arrest, he can hit you.
It can use force.
Yes. If you are charged, you can be locked up. Use force to restrain you and lock you up.
Yeah.
The ultimate use of force is capital punishment. And the state has to sanction that. But on the other hand, we have something called self-defense. which is justified because someone was trying to impose violence on you. But so that's where we are supposed to be heading. So, but what I think has helped to retard us as a nation in that, we have still something called corporal punishment that most Jamaicans believe is their right and responsibility to beat their children. Most Jamaicans believe in corporal punishment. That is the cornerstone of the violence in our society between men and women.
Wow. We're up to a break. Stay tuned. Interface will be right back. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. We're here with psychologist Dr. Leahcim Semaj discussing domestic violence, across Jamaica. Before the break, Dr. Semaj made an excellent point. He said corporal punishment is the foundation. I want to note that he said it's one of the many things that Jamaicans agree to. We're okay with corporal punishment, but what of domestic violence? Let's continue on that, Dr. Semaj.
How many times you hear people say, well, my mother and father used to beat me and look how good me turn out?
Oh, all the time.
All right? I'm saying that, well, my mother used to beat me.
Me too.
But guess what? The impact of corporal punishment on your long-term behavior has one of two options. Either you will continue that behavior and do so with people around you, or you will never do it again, as in my case. I made a decision I would never subject my children to what I was subjected to, because I realized how bad, how awful that was. So that ultimately with time then, if every time half of us realize and stop doing it, maybe sometime down the road we'll get there, all right?
Yes.
But in the interim, what corporal punishment does, it teaches a child at least 4 things. 1, if somebody disobeys you, you can hit them. That's what happened as a child. If somebody makes you upset, you can hit them. If somebody offends you, you can hit them. If you're bigger than somebody, you can hit them. All of those things are learned by children because they are subjected to it, because they were the victim of it.
Yes.
Because once your mother or your father get vexed with you, you get hit. You disappoint me. You disobey me. Now, that behavior now continues and becomes part of the repertoire of both, interestingly, male continue it because they're bigger than women. By the way, some women beat men too, all right?
Yes.
But we don't usually talk about that. But then there are many women who actually grew up accepting that it is part of the process. If him love me,
Him beat me.
him beat me. And there are situations where women actually do things occasionally to stimulate jealousy, to make sure, him still love me.
Oh, yes,
so that
that's true.
nonsense goes on. So we have that grounding there in our society, whereby we have to start to really teach people some different behaviors, give them some different anchors. And I start with the 2 premises. 1, the state as a monopoly on violence. You and I don't have a right to settle a dispute by me just coming inside and box you up.
Yes.
What's the proper thing? If you thief my things, I'm supposed to take you to court. I'm supposed to report it. If something happens, if you and I work here and something happens on the job, I'm supposed to take it to HR. I don't come in and just box you down.
That's true.
At least I'm not supposed to do that. Huh?
But people do.
Yeah, but because the issue, and if the situation is where the state is lax in exercising their responsibility, people take things into their own hands. But that don't make it right.
That's true. Jungle justice.
That's why we call it. See what? Jungle justice we call it, because we know that's what used to happen in primitive times before we had laws and statutes and so on. But then now along the way now, when we see this kind of behavior now continuing in the family, in relationships and so on. And it gets to this end stage where somebody kills somebody. There's some more bizarre. You kill the woman and you kill the children too. And then ultimately you kill yourself. So that's the end. But then we have to start to teach. I'm really concerned about helping men, first of all, to how do they extricate themselves from these kinds of domestic situations where, whatever the reason, the woman give you a bun, the woman offend you, the woman disappoint you.
Should leave you.
The woman decides she's going to leave you.
Oh, yeah.
Because even before you do that, just you're going to leave.
Sometime, yeah.
Sometimes the woman leave and then go back and hurt. But then on the other side, we have to help women to save themselves. Because these things, it doesn't just happen just like that out of nowhere.
Yes, and there
are
are signs.
Early signs. So you're in a relationship with a man, you're building a relationship. And the first thing he starts to do is to separate you from your friends and families.
Sign.
That's
red flag.
Red flag.
Red flags.
Wally British used to have a thing called red flag.
Exactly.
That anywhere, you go to your mother's house again? You never go over there yesterday? So cutting you off from your friends. No, you're going out somewhere with your friends after work and so on. So what kind of thing that you cut you off from your friends and family? Tries to control your life and your finances. No, man, you don't need to work, man. We'll take care of you, man. Tempting. And you realize how many situations where it started off of as, we have to also help to teach Jamaican about, there's some things that we confuse relationships. There's something called situationship.
Oh, yes.
And there's something called transactional sex.
I think many Jamaicans need to know about that because...
Yeah. So a situationship is not really a relationship. It's a situation you find yourself in whereby you provide some of the trappings of relationships, but
it's not a relationship.
It's not a relation. There's that emotional bond and long-term commitment and so on is not there.
Yes.
It's something that both sides are doing as a transaction to achieve certain immediate objectives. And then the transactional nature of it, oftentimes now the transactions aren't totally negotiated. What's the exit clause?
If there is any.
Is it implied that it's forever and ever? But then nothing was said. Exit clause
component. There was no discussion about it.
Exit clause section is silent.
Wow.
And then when somebody wants exit, then it becomes a little sticky. So that early signs, it's important for us to teach the early signs. So once you start, the first time the man hits you, no matter what it's joking my back. Play my play. No, we don't play that way.
No, clear.
The first time him grab you and and shake you. Just hold you and shake
unacceptable.
you. So that if you just him never really mean it. The first time those things happen, they have to be addressed, and there must be some clear understanding that this is not what I signed up for. Because it is going to escalate. It is going to get worse. Now, the female version of that, though, is not the physical assault. Because, yes, there's someone who can box down man, right? But in general, men tend to be bigger and stronger.
Yes.
The female version is now, she take her key and draw it on the side of him car. You laugh like, man, you know. I've known a case where the woman went and saw the man's car somewhere where it shouldn't have been, and she got a big stone, and she break every glass on the car.
Wow.
Windscreen, side glass, headlight, rear view mirror on the side, right? So that's, but when we say, but that's not taking a life, but so we get to those kinds of situations where when one person inevitably wants to end the relationship or wants to change the terms of the relationship, that now And that's our other big problem in Jamaica, how we resolve conflict.
Yes, that has been an ongoing issue.
So that even man and man, that's why when we talk about domestic violence, it's just one limited subset. But most violence is man versus man.
Yes.
Most murders are committed by men against men.
Even recently there was 2 cases of patricide.
Yes, with the man and father and so on and all of that. So let's not lose sight of that the majority of homicide is men versus men. The majority. So in terms of the violence that is exhibited, 90% of homicide is exhibited by man versus man. And we in Jamaica, some simple little thing results: football, domino. Somebody step on your toe in the dance.
A step on the toe is really a serious one for me. Can you imagine your response to somebody stepping on your toe and apologizing? Is you stabbing them.
Yeah.
And then they end up dying.
Yeah. So those kinds of things. So that is another. We really have to learn to diffuse that, because another my premise in terms of human behavior, when I say I support Max Weber's position that the state is a monopoly on violence, and we have to learn to enforce that and live with that. But then the other thing, we have to respect each other's sovereign personhood. No one has a right to verbally, emotionally, or physically attack you.
Amen.
Nobody has that right. Your parents don't have that right. Remember, so we established that from the beginning. Your parents don't. Your teachers don't have that right. Your boyfriend don't have that right. Your neighbor next door don't have that right. When we have a disagreement and a dispute, we seek help. And by the way, in domestic situations, it's approximately 6 years before a problem starts, before the couple seeks help.
6 years. Hold that thought. We are up to another break. 6 years? Wow, that's a very long time. We're up to another break. Stay tuned. Interface will be right back with this discussion. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. Our guest today, psychologist Dr. Leahcim Semaj. Earlier before the break, we were discussing how long it takes for some couples to report, and Dr. Semaj actually said 6 years. So I want you to elaborate more on that. 6 years is a very long time.
Yes, and in that time, what happens, things calcify, things get hardened, and things get worse. But it's like life is a sine wave, up and down and up and down. But it should be getting better. But something happens, the person apologizes, and we say it won't happen again, and then something happens, and then all right, you talk to your friend. It is good to talk to friends, but friends aren't necessarily your best help. Friends oftentimes do not give you analytical and constructive response. More often than friends reinforce your position. They say what you want to hear. Very few friends will say, Kimberly, no, Kimberly, with all due respect, Kimberly, yes, you say him love you, but love shouldn't hurt like that. This should da. So that it's important to eventually the wounds heal and you feel better and things go good again for a while, but then because anyone who is dealing with any kind of couples counseling doesn't happen in one session, and it can't happen with just both parties in the room. You need to work with them individually to get their sides clearly, and then now when you get to the point where you can put them both together now and work out a contract, a way forward. Now there's some kind of counseling, even friend. What you end up telling people that, listen, tell you what, we want to save the marriage, we want to save the relationship. And especially sometimes family members, parents, sometimes they feel embarrassed that this marriage is breaking up, this relationship is breaking up. And even though there's some structural problems with it, and they try and hold on, man, because, better not there. And, right? So that takes a toll. And it becomes easier next time to. I had an incident some years ago where the court referred a couple to me, The judge, in his wisdom, thought that sending this man to prison was not the resolution for this matter. And he suggested, one, he put a restraining order on him that he could not go to the matrimonial home.
Okay.
He had to stay away until this was resolved. But then they had to come to me. And at the end of the time, when I saw that I could make a statement to the court that this relationship was now back on another footing and so on, then the judge would make his ruling then. And by about the third session, they started coming together, because she said that because him change and him talking different, and him asked if him can come home, and I said yes, and right. So, but I said, but both of you are violating the court order, because the court has said he must stay away until the judge rules and so on. In about another 3 weeks, I got a call from him that he's at the airport, that she passed our place, and I'm at a discipline her. And that's the original behavior of this violent attack on her.
Wow.
But now he knew that, having done that, he was now in trouble with the state.
Yeah.
So he was at the airport and he flew out. So she felt a certain level of relief and so on. But believe it or not, in about 3 months I heard from her, oh, she'd been visiting him in Miami. She'd been going to visit him in Miami.
Oh my God.
Because him same change. And so relationships have some quirks, and
they really do. And it's the decision of the person.
yeah, and what she told me, that she knows it's going to end. He eventually is going to kill her and kill himself. She actually said that. And she, just like a lemon, she felt drawn back to. But eventually he was away. She came to her senses. But when I thought she had fully, about a year later, she had actually filed for divorce and was able to get it. But when she had to sign the final paper for the, in order to apply for the absolute, she called me in conflict. She really wondered if him can really change and that. So you understand that these things are complex. In Facebook, when you say the relationship is complicated.
Complicated.
Yes, it's complicated. So but that's why it's very important for us to look at the early stages. When you see the early signs, you start to seek intervention and seek help and get creditable help as possible. We need to have facilities where a woman can go when she don't feel safe. I see there's a big role for men. The first man is your father, then your uncle, then your brother. I know of a situation where a man, informed his daughter's spouse that, listen, if my daughter cry, you have to give an account to me. It's not that we sign up for. And I am armed and ignorant.
Wow.
So that you put things in context whereby the man knows it's not she alone, that she have back it in.
You have to face me.
You have to face me too. And that is something that I think is lacking when a relationship is not just between two individuals, it's two families.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially in marriage.
Absolutely. And then again now, so men have to take on that role. But we have another special case now, that of how do we teach men how to resolve conflicts and emotional conflicts without resorting to violence. And I have created a program which I think this year I'm going to put it into being. I call it constructive disengagement. Now, this is where we constructively engage a relationship. Why shouldn't we constructively disengage? Don't just drop it and block it. Just gently bring it back down. And my plan is to use music to do this.
I was just about to ask you how it would work.
All right?
Okay.
First of all, the ideal setting is a party. The big vision I have, if we did one of these in each parish capital a month. And the first song we're going to play is Members Only. It's a private party. Just bring your broken heart. People who are going through conflict in relationships. That's the opening song.
Okay.
And then for the first hour, we play all songs to do with broken heart and breakup. And some songs that people just don't even realize that hold on. When Bob Marley says, my woman is gone, how she said she couldn't take it anymore and she wanted a different life. Marley, woman left Marley, yes. When Wayne Wonder sing, what? The saddest day of my life was when she left with a broken heart. Huh? So it's not you first woman left. When Sizzler sang Dry Cry.
Even there.
Huh? Big bad Sizzler. Huh? And we can go on and on and on and on like that, you know. So why you feel is you're the first person that somebody left.
Even recently, Vybz Kartel's album to Tanisha. Everybody talking about that.
The Big Bad's teacher. So that we can extricate those songs and get people to immerse in it and externalize. It's not just you one. It's not the first time on earth that this has happened.
Yes.
And then after we get them fully immersed in that now, the second hour, we go to the other set of songs now. We can start with Glory again, huh? I will survive. Huh? There's a whole slew of songs that talk about getting along without you. Gotta get along without you now. There's a slew of songs that talk about the strength I have to go on. So that use the music to get them to externalize their thoughts and feelings and realizing that what you have experienced is not unique and special. My prediction, by the time we get to the third hour, some new relationships will be started to form because you went there to heal your broken heart, and I went there to heal mine, and then we meet each other.
We're both unbroken now, so.
Yes, yeah. But I want to get men to talk about it. And if it in the session, then what would interspace with the music now, we have testimonial. Where people share their experiences, share their stories as to what. So when you hear other people sharing their stories, you know, and you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not the first person that this has happened to. And then we steadily find a way of just lowering the temperature. So I want to introduce that construct because we're familiar with the music. I'm sure all the songs, when I mention the song, like, oh, yeah, we know that song. Then. We know that. But then you put it in context now that let us use this as the mechanism now to start giving people a different way. And then we have to start to reteach people what love is.
Yes, I believe a lot of persons don't know what love actually is.
Need and love is two different things, you know. The fact that I need you, but that don't mean I love you. Huh? The fact that there's a transaction which has been created. The fact that one of my favorite definitions of love by Eric Fromm says that love is a decision that two people make in terms of how they will deal with each other. If love was just a feeling, it couldn't last. Don't feelings come and go? So that there are times when I can't stand you, Tanisha, but I still love you. And because I love you, I'm not going to say certain things, I'm not going to do certain things.
Yeah.
Love is a decision, not a feeling. Feelings come and go. So that whole, we want to create a gentler society. The things we say to each other. And all the things we can draw them from our childhood. Didn't we learn that soft answer, turn it away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger? Huh? So we need to get back to, when we start teaching people about love language. There are about 5 different languages of love in terms of different, each person have a different love style. Yes. And then you have to know your partner's love style in terms of how do you. Then I want to use the same music to teach about love, you know. So when I draw John Holt, I want a love I can feel. Huh?
All right, hold that thought. We will continue the discussion regarding love languages and how we can make our society better and stop and end domestic violence. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. Our guest today, psychologist Dr. Leahcim Semaj. Earlier before the break, Dr. Semaj actually said his idea, what he would recommend to do in our society, which is a fair idea, I like it, is to have everyone come to one place, listen to music, because music is a language itself, and just, hash out their feelings. You said you'd have testimonials. I kind of like that idea. But I want you to explain why it is that you think that this idea would work.
I had a sound system started in the 80s and the 90s called Judgment. And I used to keep a dance every Friday night. And the dance was a theme dance. All my dances are theme dances.
Okay.
And the themes you have on so many dances are just some kind of obscene themes and so on. My themes are things like in praise of black women, where every song we play for the night is in praise of black women.
Oh.
Or tribute to the martyrs. Every song we play is about those who have gone on before, who help us to, And we would stop the sound at midnight from between 12 and 1 and just talk about the theme of the dance. There are people who used to come to the dance just for the midnight reasoning. And it's out of that my first radio show started, where people said, but Doc, this nicer than radio, We need them kind of thing upon radio, them kind of reasoning, And so that's why I realized that the music and the testimonials, where people talking about and people hearing other people's views and so on, and then use the music to highlight that you are not alone. Other people have felt what you are feeling, other people have been there, but then give them solutions. And then hear the testimonials from those who have been there and shared, and all that in a nice party setting. So that I'm going to make this happen, because I think it's a low-hanging fruit. People are going to go to some mass counseling session.
Oh.
People, but they'll go to a party.
Yes, for sure.
The party, and then many people have the need for a party like that. Is one thing, we're going to a breakfast party, we're going to a party that is, not a curiosity. You're going through some crisis in your relationships and so on. Just to hear how other people are. Huh?
Speaking about testimonials, do you believe if more women who have, would we call them survivors?
Absolutely.
Survivors, if more survivors spoke out against domestic violence and shared their testimonials,
it would help to empower people, because oftentimes people hear the end product, but they don't hear what happened at stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and how it got there. And even some of the awful things that happened even at stage 3 and 4, but the person still went back. So to realize that you're not alone. Other women have been so conflicted that they have stayed much longer than they should have. But you see, the important thing, while you're going through this, as I said, step 1 is making sure that you spot the signs early. I think the other thing that I would like to tell, especially women, is document everything. Every time there's an incident, write it down. You keep a journal. When this happened? What happened? What were you accused of? What were the actions? Even write what you did too. Just document it. Because when things heal, you forget about the details. You feel better now on the makeup and all of that. But then over a period of time, you just realize, but hold on, this is happening too often. And look what he said after, never again will I ever lay my hand on you. How many times have you said that? Document it so that you have the hard facts, because if and when you finally go to the police, if and when you finally go to an external agency now, you're not just talking about a one. You can present, sir, it's been 10 times that we have had this. And each time he says it, it's not going to happen again. It will help to strengthen you in coming to a decision, because sometimes when you're quiet, on the 11th time that you're crying, because you have been hurt again, you look at it, but I can't live like this.
Yeah.
Now, I have known, and so at the same time now, we need facilities where our friends can help friends, and I've known of women who have actually, when they got to that point, they left the house with their handbag alone. And people tell me, but that you can't. Listen, what happens if your house burned down and everything burned up?
Yeah.
Don't you give thanks
Yes,
for life when you start
exactly.
over? So there are women who, when they get to a certain point, there's some literally just leave the house with their handbag alone because they realize that they cannot live like this anymore. So the documentation is important. The police, I get the impression that units have been created and more police personnel are more sensitive to these issues. But we have a long history of police doing business and domestic business.
Yes.
Police say, well, all right, when them come back, if them hit you again, call us. And as opposed to, the other extreme we have, the US model is quite different. If a woman calls the police, the man is spending the night in jail.
Wow.
Once the police have to come for a domestic, the first thing, all right, so come with us, sir. Oh, but come with us, sir. Let us sort it out. And sometimes that can be abused. Because police have the option to do that too in Jamaica. That if a woman is threatened, but then now the issue of our justice system works so slow in terms of getting a court order and getting making sure that, but the police is, I think, I'm hearing signs that they're more sensitive and don't just accept what they tell you when you call a station, escalate it. Talk to a senior office. I've known that person's going straight to the commissioner's office. Worse yet, if it's a policeman. Clearly, if you're dealing with a policeman or a soldier, you get your report straight to his boss. And I've known of situations where women have done that. And then they get a direct response because the situation is escalating.
So what more can the government and the police do?
Well, first of all, look, we need facilities where short-term facilities where literally a woman is in a situation whereby she's threatened, she feels afraid, she's threatened that she can go and she can be safe. Because look at one of the most recent incidents. A woman went back home
To her mother, Navia Sinclair, and she's 27, So when I think about it, I'm saying, wow, this could be any one of us, daughters.
Yes.
27, she left the relationship, went back home, and he allegedly snuck through the window and
right, so that places of safe houses are needed, safe places are needed. So that's part of what where the state agencies can facilitate, but to make sure that the police are adequately trained and sensitized to respond to these issues. To de-escalate them, to diffuse them, and if necessary, to take whatever required action to remove somebody from the situation. Because historically, the most common thing was just, I've known of a woman who literally, the police was tired of seeing her because the number of incidents, and she'd go there and report it, and I said, okay, yes, we're going to come by and talk to him, we're going to come by, and it never happens. And especially in the light with our level of serious crime, that is not necessarily something high on the police agenda. It's high on your agenda because your life is threatened or you feel threatened. But then they have issues of major crime and violence to contend to, and limited resources in terms of transportation and so on to get to various. So that, but nonetheless, I mean, we have to start treating with a certain level of urgency, even having units set up specifically for that.
But what of our culture? Because in our culture, and this is something we can't run from, there's that culture of bun in society, in Jamaica society, where it's okay for a man to do it, but not a woman. And oftentimes we hear the alleged stories that they do this because them hear say the woman did a give bun, so him beat her, and then him can't take the bun, or him hurt, can't take the bun, so him end up beat her, kill her, then him kill himself.
Well, we need more public discussion, such as we're having here, and not just after a major incident, because there are a lot of young people, the context for them learning about relationships. Where we learn about relationships now? From the dancehall music? Just from the music, it's not giving us a full picture of what is to be and how you handle a relationship. So we need understanding. So the process, the repercussions, what happens, how you handle a relationship, how you handle a breakup, you know, what happens when you tell lies, just all the various facets and dimensions to just talk about issues of relationship. And relationship is not just meeting somebody at a dance or meeting somebody on the road and you and them there. Just the whole processes by which relationships are built and destroyed. So that media has a big role to play. I'm even including, you know, public service announcements, billboard, just reminding that love should not hurt. Love should not bleed. You know, some things like that as an ongoing campaigns to remind people that no, that's not what love is. That's not what love is. The fact that somebody hurt you does not give you the right to kill them. The fact that somebody disappointed you, the fact that somebody deceived you, does not. There are other ways and means of dealing with it. And once the state apparatus is more strengthened now, because you realize that, yes, you take something to court, how long it's going to take, but then sometimes you have to just walk away. And that's one of the biggest things I teach men. Boss, walk away. Leave it alone. But doc, the woman, no. It is not worth it. And once ego and testosterone mix, you know, it gets volatile.
And I remember having this discussion earlier this week about licensed firearm holders, and one particular person said to me, you know, that happened to me years ago, it happened. And he thought about it. He said the thought came in his mind, and what he did, he went down to a station and gave them his gun.
Excellent action. I was the one that first drafted all the content that is ultimately was on the FLA website. All the thing about gun safety and mechanisms for providing firearm license to people. And one thing that I had encouraged is the use of some kind of an assessment to look at how you handle violence and aggression. But that was never approved. But the data shows us that persons who have access to firearms are the persons who are most likely to be involved in domestic abuse situation. Because you have access. So security guards, policemen, soldiers, and licensed firearm holders. Because it's part of your arsenal. You have that. So that if you have an anger problem, an anger management problem, and you're a licensed firearm holder, it was brilliant on that person's that person recognized that something was happening that would trigger him. So for him to take his weapon out of the house and, yeah. But not many people are that mature. So it is now something that I do believe we should look at. You know, when you issue a firearm to someone, whether it is as a security guard, a policeman, or a licensed firearm, anger management. How do you manage anger? How do you handle conflicts? We need to start raising those kind of questions too, so that we can lower the body count in our society.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's interface. Thank you to my guest psychologist, Dr. Leahcim Semaj. Thanks to my editorial and production teams. I'm Kimberly Broderick, wishing you pleasant viewing.